Welcome back to the JoinTheTrades.com interview series where we talk to tradespeople and learn more about successful career paths straight from the source. Today, my guest is Austin. Austin is a high-voltage electrical journeyman lineman with 8 years of experience in the trade. Austin, hi. How did you get started?
Hey, crew, thanks for having me. So, yeah, we'll just start from the very beginning. As in high schools love to preach college, right? And I'm a pretty good individual when it comes to math and things like that. So I thought I was destined to be some sort of engineer. I wanted to get into the electrical industry because that's a kind of a good industry to be in because everything requires electricity when it comes down to it. So I figured, hey, maybe since college is really my only pathway, I'll just go to school to be an electrical engineer. I took a running start program in high school, which is as a junior and senior in high school, you can take college credits and essentially graduate high school with a graduation diploma for high school and a general AA for college. Well, as I was doing that, I got about towards the end of my senior year and I said, yeah, heck with it. I'm done with school. I ain't going back to school after high school. I'm just not ready for this at all. My dad, he's a pipe fitter and he works at one of the lumber mills and from my hometown in Washington. My mom, she's a nurse. I grew up in the country. I grew up working with my hands, doing all kinds of yard work, taking out trees, just doing country things. And why the heck am I going to go to college and spend, 2 4 years to go get a degree that I like? It just didn't make sense to me. So towards the end of my senior year, we actually had a little trade show type thing, just in our hometown where they had, a heavy equipment company come out. They had the local PUD come out there. They had a various bunch of different trades, right? And as a high schooler, you're just kind of bebopping around and checking out the different trade opportunities. And they hand you out a flyer like, oh, check this out. The only thing that really stuck out to me was the PUD. They had a pole set in the ground and they're like, hey, come over, check it out. Put on the climbing gear. You can climb up a couple feet and, see how it feels. And that's cool. I grew up climbing trees, like without proper climbing gear. I just climbed trees as a kid. I mean, it's Washington State. There's massive trees out there. And trust me, I climbed a heck of a lot of trees. And I knew I liked climbing. So I tried on a climbing gear. And I was like, oh, this is cool. It's very, very awkward. You're climbing a vertical pole like this and you're trying to climb up something like this. It's extremely awkward. Probably one of the most awkward situations you can be put in physically. But anyways, so I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I kind of talked to them about, oh, what kind of money can you make? Where are job opportunities and things like that. And they didn't give me a very good details of where to even get started or how to get started. But I knew this was something that I would pursue because it really interested me. So I graduated high school, got my diploma, and I was thinking, man, how do I get started? So I'm on Google for hours. I'm on YouTube for hours trying to figure out accurate information. Where do I get started? How to get started? Luckily, I had a family friend who was a journeyman lineman who worked for a utility across the river, and then a cousin who had just started in the lineman trade as a groundman. So I had a couple resources. So I reached out to them, and they gave me, a few good steps. They said, well, you can get your Class A CDL and you can get your CPR first aid certification and you can apply for union apprenticeships in Washington or for the Northwest. And then my cousin, he was telling me, he's like, well, I just went to this lineman school in Spokane, which is 7 hours away from me. You can go to the line school. They'll teach you how to climb. They'll teach you, this and that, things about the trade. You'll get your Class A CDL, your flagger's permit, CPR first aid card, and a handful of other things. And I did that, and he ended up getting a job with the company that puts on that lineman school. So I was like, man, maybe that's really my only option. So that's what I did. I applied for that lineman school. You have to go in and you take like an aptitude test, you take like a math test and like a little skills test because they only bring in, I think, 45 people into the class, and out of the thousands of applicants that they get, they base you off, how well do you do on an aptitude test. And then if you do good enough, then you get enrollment into their schooling. So I did all that, and it was like a 6 month wait period by the time I actually got an email saying like, congratulations, you can come to the school, pay us, 12 grand, and then, 4 months, and then you get out, and then you can go on your way to somehow become a lineman. I was like, okay, cool. So that starts in January of 2016. So I hopped my little piece of crap 1997 Honda Civic that I have as an 18-year-old. Leading up to this point, though, I was working at a metal fab shop locally in the town I grew up in, and I loved welding. Like in high school, we had a welding class and shop class, so I thought that was another opportunity that I could do. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity for me at the time to really like get into welding. I didn't really want to pursue it as a career. It just wasn't for me. Once I fell in love, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love heights. The versatile you can do with the lineman trade is being able to travel once you become a journeyman, and just like the whole opportunities just really appeased me. So I went for the lineman career instead. But up to that point, I worked in a welding shop, and now that was cool and whatnot. If it wasn't for the lineman industry, I'd probably do welding. So I went to the school, moved to Spokane, did the 4 month schooling, which they taught me, a handful of things, how to got my CDL and things. And then they're like, okay, congratulations, you graduated, have fun. And I'm like, okay, now where do I go? Like there wasn't like, here's a job, or they just kind of threw you out there like they do with high school, essentially. High school is like, here's what you can do, and then see you later. Right. So I was like, okay, cool. So they kind of gave me a few steps on where to go, where to apply and things like that, and what to do. But I'm like 19 years old at this point, and I still pretty young and dumb. So, I applied everywhere that I could figure out where to apply. I went back home. I ended up signing the union books down in Portland, Oregon, which is IBW Local 125. Ended up getting a groundman call for a tree trimming power line clearance crew, which wasn't ideally what I wanted to do, because like I want to be a lineman, not a tree trimmer. But the tree trimming occupation is really great related work experience to get into the lineman trade, which I later figured out down the road. So I got into that, and then 2 weeks later, I had an apprenticeship interview for the Northwest Lineman Apprenticeship. Ranked terrible because I was only 19 and I have zero life experience. I got ranked like 125th. And they basically straight up told me, like, hey, you're 19. You don't have any experience except for the $12,000 you spent at a lineman school. And you have 2 weeks of experience, like, of on the job in a related trade. And I said, okay, cool. So that to me was, okay, I'm going to work as a tree trimmer or in the tree trimming trade for a year or so, and get experience, and maybe reapply and see if that helps me out to get a better ranking. Anyways, they allowed me to stay on the interview rank list for up to 2 years. And then after 2 years, you have to re-interview every year. So I just worked in the tree trim and power line clearance trade for a year and a half. And in that year and a half, I worked as a groundman, which is, the bottom position you can work at on a lineman crew or on a tree trimming crew. You start out as a groundman or a pre-apprentice, and then you get into an apprenticeship. You complete an apprenticeship, and you become a journeyman, lineman or tree trimmer, carpenter, plumber, electrician. There's apprenticeships for everything out there. So about a year in, I was like, man, I'm ranked now. As they were calling people out for the lineman apprenticeship, I was moving down in rank. So I went from 125th to 100 to 80 to 60. So I was moving down the rank list, and I was like, it's a matter of time before I get called out. But I'm just sitting here as a groundman. I'm not really further advancing my education in a trade. So I ended up getting the tree trimming apprenticeship, which was awesome, because then at that point, then you're going to Saturday schools, learning how to climb trees, rigging, knots. Now I'm actually going up in a bucket truck, and I'm clearing trees away from power lines. Like, I'm up in it now. So that experience I was enjoying that experience a lot. And I love the whole aspect of, the tree trimming trade, because of the rigging, because of everything that was involved. It's very similar to the lineman trade, because you're working on the street. You can be working long hours. You're working storms. You're working next to power lines. You're working on a crew culture. You're learning just the steps you need to take to be an apprentice and things like that. Like, it's a very similar trade. So anyways, about 4 or 5 months into my tree trimming apprenticeship, the lineman apprenticeship, they called me and said, hey, Austin, we have an opportunity for you. you're ranked number one right now. You've moved down the rank list. Do you want to get your opportunities right now? Do you want to become an apprentice lineman? And I was in a tough predicament right there because now I'm a second step tree trimmer apprenticeship. Do I finish my tree trimmer apprenticeship, become a journeyman tree trimmer, and then pursue the lineman trade? Or like, what do I do? I'm 21 years old at this point. Or no, 20 years at this point. This is September of 2017. And I'm sitting in the truck and I'm hem-hawing. He's like, you don't have to give me an answer right now, but if you don't call me back in 10 minutes with an answer, then I'm moving on to the next guy and your opportunity's passed. And I'm like, crap, what do I do? So he hangs up. I have 10 minutes. I start the timer. I'm outweighing my options. He wants me to be in Boardman, Oregon, or Arlington, Oregon by Monday at 6 a.m. This is on a Friday at 3 p.m. So I have 2.5 days to really figure out what I need to do. Like if I do it, like where is Arlington, Oregon? Where do I live in Arlington, Oregon? How do I get to Arlington, Oregon? There's a lot of unknown variables that I'm not used to. I'm only 20 years old and I really haven't worked on the road, right? But now I'm getting to this contractor's lineman apprenticeship that requires me to travel anywhere in the states of Washington, Oregon, Northern Idaho, and even Northern California. So it's a big, it's just, I just don't know what to do. So anyways, I knew I wanted to be a lineman. I call him back. Yeah, I want to do it. He's like, okay. So he sends me paperwork on the email. He said, this is your boss. Show up Arlington, Oregon, 6 a.m. Monday morning. This is Friday afternoon. I'm up in Northern Washington. And then the journey starts. And from there, I realized that since I'm not 21 yet, my CDL isn't good in the state of Oregon. So I have Friday afternoon, well, technically Saturday, to figure out how to transfer my license from Washington to Oregon, which was a big pain in the butt. And then find a place to live in Arlington, Oregon. And that's 3.5 hours from my home. I'm just thrown into the wind, and I was forced to grow up right then and there. So that's how the journey was started.
Wow, that's a bit convoluted, man. That's a long journey in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, after you.
Yeah. So so that Monday morning, I believe I want to say September 21st, I start my lineman apprenticeship in Arlington, Oregon, and from then on, it's 7,000 hours and 660 classroom hours of in-class training and 7,000 hours on-the-job training. And so, yeah, that's what I had to look forward for the next 3-4 years, however long it takes me to get those 7,000 hours and 160 in-class hours. That's Saturday schools. You're going to school on Saturday, in-class training, learning about electrical theory, transformers, capacitors, all this stuff inside the electrical industry. And then you're having between the months of December and May, you're going to this, what we called Camp Rylea, which is on an Army base on the west coast of Washington. The apprenticeship leased out a chunk of property on Army base where they had we called a barn, which had classrooms and then outside they had a pull yard where they had like 30 poles in the ground, and you're climbing poles out in the nasty 24-degree West Coast weather, and you're learning, you're doing your thing. So that's what I had to look forward for the next 3 or so years, and the journey is pretty cool.
Okay, cool. So when you're going through that whole learning process, and you're talking about 7,000 hours, right, of actual in field, and then how many hours of in classroom? 6,000.
100. I believe it's 160. I can't quote if I just remember seeing it on a piece of paper. It's 160 hours of in-class learning. So like
Okay.
Saturday school in the Northwest, it's different anywhere in the country because there's multiple different apprenticeships. You have Northwest Lineman, you have Northwest, you have CalNav, which is California, Nevada. You have SwoleCat, which is Southwest, which is Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma. You have mountain states, which are your mountain states: Utah, Montana, Wyoming, a couple other states there. Then you have the Midwest, East Coast, Northeast, Southwest, and they all have different apprenticeships and they operate all differently. But for us in the Northwest, it was every other Saturday from November till May. Every other Saturday, you'd go to school all day and learn in class.
Wow. So, and how is that covered as far as financially goes? Is that part of the? Is that you're basically learning to earn, or
That's what the apprenticeship is all about. So the cost is there's a minute cost with it, but the whole point of apprenticeship is you're earning while you're learning. I'm not paying nothing to go to these schools. The only thing I think I'm not even paying, I won't say I'm paying zero to go to these schools. And not to mention throughout your apprenticeship, the 7,000 hours of on the job training and learning, which is those are hours that you're working, but you're getting trained at the same time you're learning at work. I mean, I'm getting paid an hourly. It's a job. I mean,
right?
and don't get me wrong, I was making my first, I won't get into numbers unless you want me to, just to tell an audience. But my first full year as an apprentice, I made more than my mom and dad did combined. So
Yeah,
20-year-old.
yeah. I'm glad that you're addressing this because it's something that we like to address when we have the opportunity. That you know, you mentioned earlier you were burnt out on your regular education. You know, after high school, a lot of people feel that there's only two options: the military or college, and then. Of course, the cost of college is just astronomical at this point, and is brutal. And so often people aren't even working in that field. It's nice when anyone brings that up because it's something that I think is on a lot of young people's mind. Is this really worth me being in debt till I'm 40 years old? I mean, it took me till I was like 40 years old to pay off that. And then, yeah, as far as mentioning the pay, that's good. The idea that you're getting, paid to learn basically, and with a first rate education is extraordinary and something that you don't find certainly in college education. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was a thing for me was also, so the apprenticeship took me 3 years, 3 months. So I completed at 23 years old. Buddies that I went to college with or to high school with were either just graduating college or going to be graduating college. And I've already made, a good amount of money the whole time that they were spending money for the last 4 or 5 years. I was making really great money. So, I just see it as a little bit of money ahead, I guess. It's unless you want to go to college for some sort of education, like I'm not telling you not to, but if you don't want to go to college, like just know there's really great opportunities in the skilled trades, like many great opportunities.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here too, is to let people know. I've mentioned this before, but I talk to young people sometimes and they say, well, I don't want to work on a roof for 30 grand a year. But like as many people as can tell them, like, hey, within a couple years, you can be making six figures. You're not sitting in an office. You're not in debt until you're 40. These are all things to at least keep in mind. I mean, like you said, no, all the more power to someone who decides they go to college, wants to be a doctor, wants to go through that, needs to go through that. But there are a lot of opportunities that people aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So, well, you were kind of fortunate also that in high school, you had the opportunity to get exposed with a trade class. And that's not, as far as I know, that's not super common at this point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The high school I went to, I think is now one of very few high schools in the state of Washington that still has a shop class. I know when my dad went to high school, he went to the same high school I went to. They had logging class, they had welding, they had woodwork, they had all this stuff, right? That's back when he's 54 now, so whenever, I can't think of the year that would have been. But then now, obviously, as years go on, the trade stuff is just like left in the dust. So the high school I went to still has welding. They still have woodworking. And now the state of Washington, actually, I believe they get grants from upwards of $250,000, $300,000 a year to just like put into their trade learning. So they're buying new welders. They're incorporating a lot of new classes for like technological things like CAD and basically learning how robots work and stuff. Like I'm not really exactly sure the details of the classes they have now, but the way the trades are going now, it's inevitable with technology and now AI, especially like the welding industry and things like that. I mean, you even see it in the construction industry. They can build. I think in Arizona, they were able to build a literal house out of concrete with a robot. So, but the thing is, you're still going to need people to essentially build software and be able to run these programs. So I mean, this younger generation, they're smart when it comes to technological things. So I think that's another thing that they're teaching in that my high school went to is, learning things like that. So even if you don't want to go to college, or if you do, you get some sort of degree in technology somewhere, but there's still going to be trade opportunities or opportunities for them in a blue collar industry working with technology and building software and programs and operating robots in the welding industry and things like that. So, but yeah, there's nothing like just building something with your hands, welding, building, make it's art in my eyes. So I don't see, yeah, from my perspective, I don't see a lot of high schools that still have a shop class, like
Yeah.
a literal shop class. They might have a little program here and there. It's like, oh, hey, let's build a birdhouse or something. But it's like, let's teach them good basic skills, how to read a tape measure, how do you use an impact drill, like
Yeah.
simple things like that. You're not going to teach them what a gable end is or how to frame a house. I mean, you can teach them how to frame a dog house, I guess, but teach them the basics. That way they have a good understanding of, so when they are thrown out in the real world, they at least have an understanding of these things, like being able to read a tape measure. You'd be surprised on how many people in my generation, I'm 26, younger, that don't know how to read a tape measure, like the quarters, the eighths, or the sixteenths. And it kind of blows me away when I hear about that, because I feel like that's such a common, easy thing for people just to know, and they
Yeah.
don't. And I'm like, you use a tape measure in every single trade that I know of. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly, there's advantages to just getting people exposed to it either way, because it gives them the opportunity to feel just as you had when you had the opportunity to climb that first pole, right? To go, oh, this is really cool. Like I kind of have an affinity for this. I like this. I could see myself doing this and enjoying it. So,
Mhm.
the more people get exposed to all that is ultimately the better. Tell us now, so where you're at in your career now. This is 8 years in. You're a full-fledged journeyman at this point. What's your day like?
So since I work on the contractor side, as you can see right now, it's afternoon on a Monday, and I'm not working. But anyways, so on the contractor side, as a journeyman lineman, you can kind of just work when you want. Obviously, I got a couple of business stuff I work on the side right now. Work's a little bit slow in the area I'm at for lineman work, so I'm using this time just to do other things. But anyway, so yeah, day to day, as a contractor, as a journeyman lineman, I go to Union Hall. I go put my name on the out of works books list. There's that book one, book two. Since I'm not a resident of an area, I put my name on book two. And when there's work, the Union Hall calls me and offers, says, hey, we have this job opportunity. Do you want it? You just literally say yes or no. If you say yes, they send you some paperwork, and then you go to the company that you're going to hire on with. You go do pre-hire paperwork, and then you start whenever they need you to start. And then you work for as long as you want to work, a month, 2 months, 6 months, 6 years. And then you drag up and you go work for a different company. The other cool thing is storms like hurricanes, tropical storms, winter storms, things like that, tornadoes. Well, knocks out a lot of power. So a lot of these companies, utilities, like we had in Florida last year with the hurricane, there was 40,000 linemen that all congregated down in Florida, and I was part of that 40,000. And so I traveled to Detroit, and then the company I went with, we drove from Detroit down to Florida, and then hung out down in Florida for 2 weeks and helped restore power to communities down in Florida. Same with the year before in Louisiana, did the same thing. So working storms, power restoration, helping communities, get their electricity back. That's probably
Sure.
one of my favorite things about being a journeyman lineman. So the day to day is, if I have a regular day to day job, I go to work for 5 a.m. to, if we're working 5 10s, 5 10 hour days, or are we on 6 12s? Are we on 7 12s? Are we building highlight? Like, depending on the job, schedules vary from every company, everywhere you work. So that's kind of what it looks like.
Cool. That's awesome that you mentioned the storm factor and the disaster factor. It's something that we've never covered here, and certainly most people don't think about. But
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that does have to be a very rewarding feeling to go, I have these skills that can have such a tangible effect on people's everyday life.
Exactly. Yeah. Like last year, so this is last Christmas, there was that big winter storm that hit the East Coast or the Northeast. And so, yeah, I got a call like, hey, do you want to come out to New York and work? And I said, oh, yeah, sure. I'll hop on a plane ticket. I'll buy a plane ticket and hop on a plane and fly to New York. It's like that last minute. They literally text you and then you buy a plane ticket and you fly out either that night or the next morning. You go work. But it's just super cool. I've never worked through Christmas before, and it was kind of on my bucket list to be able to want to work through Christmas. And since I don't have a family or nothing like really like holding me down or like wanting me to stay home for Christmas, I was like, this is actually a cool opportunity to go away from home or away from family, spend the holidays away from what you've known for me, the last 25 years of my life, and then go across the country and help restore power and give people their power back on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Like that satisfaction right there alone makes it all worth it. To be able to throw that cutout back in, you see a neighborhood full of lights come on, flip the light switch. There's something about it that I just don't know what other feeling that I've ever gotten similar to that from doing that. So I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. Like I kind of get goosebumps just talking about it because I don't know. I love that aspect of this trade a lot.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I mean, there's so many jobs and careers out there that you don't have that immediate gratification where you're knowing you're making a difference. Certainly, as you mentioned, the fact that it happened to also be the holidays and people were without power, and anyone without power anytime is tragic. I imagine it's even magnified when people have come in to visit family and they're all together and they have no power, they have no heat. So that's awesome. That's obviously a big pro for you with the career. Tell us about some of the cons.
So some of the cons, it goes with it. Yeah, if you work on the contractor side, it doesn't actually matter what side you work on. So you have two sides, we call it. You can work for the utility, so the company that is providing that's on your power bill, or you work for the contractors that do the work for the utility. So you can either work for either one as a lineman or apprentice or whatever. So anyways, but either way, you're still going to be working long hours. You're going to be getting call outs for storms and power outages, right? So 2 a.m, if it's a storm season, like here in Arizona, we're coming up on monsoon season. So your months of June, July, August, September, you're going to be getting called out at 1 a.m, whatever time of the day you're working storms, 16-hour days. Now for me, it's easy because I'm single and there's nothing holding me down. I don't have a family or a wife or kids waiting to see Papa at home or nothing like that, right? So for me, it's easy. But I've seen with guys I work with, they're away from their family, especially when we go work these storms on the East Coast, and they're away from family for weeks on end, right? Now, that's with any trade, right? If you go work in the oil fields, you're doing 2-week hitches, you're away from your family for 2 weeks. These are more of just all of a sudden, I'm getting called out at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'll be back at, 5 o'clock the next day. So, that can be a rough aspect on a family. It can be mentally and physically draining as a lineman. That can be kind of a con. Again, I'm pretty young, single. I try to keep mentally and physically fit, so it doesn't really affect me too much, but it can affect people for sure. I've had experience up in Northwest. they actually allow you to work a 40-hour shift right off the bat. So if you get called out for storm, they let you work a 40-hour shift, and then you get 6 hours off, and you work 18 on, 6 off, 18 on, 6 off until you get released from storm. So that 40-hour shift, now that will knock you on your rear. That's a hard one for sure. But anyway, so that, yeah, being away from family, just like long work hours or schedules, for those, probably the two of the biggest cons. I'm trying to think what else from my perspective would be a con. Those two
Sure.
are the only things I can really think of. They're little things like where you go work and the guys you work with, of course, like their attitude and being on a crew where one guy's just pure negative Nancy and things like that. But that's literally anywhere you go work, right? You're going to
Right.
be working with people that's common. Doesn't matter where you go. I'm just trying to think specifically for the lineman trade. For me, there's not that many cons.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, of course, that's any job, right? You're going to have ins and outs of, problems with certain people, but overall, obviously you have a great time doing it, and you've enjoyed it, and you've done very well for yourself. Um,
Mhm.
so you have enough perspective now to kind of judge who might be suited for this. Who do you think, like, you know what, this is the type of personality or the type of attributes that would really go for this?
Man, the lineman trade, I'm going to tell you it's rough. As a groundman or an apprentice in the lineman trade, it's rough because we want to see what you're made of. Can you work 18 hours straight? Can you work 40 hours straight? Can you take a little bit of crap? You're going to get messed with as an apprentice or a groundman just because we want to. It is what it is. Like, that's how it's been like since 1896 when, people started working on power lines.
Right.
Um, so we want to see what you're made of. So if you got to be able to have some thick skin, you got to be able to have a good attitude. Especially attitude for me is a very big one. If you're a groundman or apprentice, don't be showing up at work with a negative attitude or piss poor attitude or whatever's going on in your personal life. We always say you got to leave your feelings at the gate. So when you drive through that gate to the yard in the morning, you got to leave your feelings at the gate because we're working on high voltage stuff here. If your mind is clouded and your judgment is all over the place, like we're working with things that will turn you into dust, that'll kill you instantly. We need your head in the right space. So we don't want you to be all over the place. So just trying to have like a good mental and physical, try to be the best you can mentally and physically fit, because also physically fit's a big one. You're going to be digging holes. If you're the groundman or apprentice and you're starting out in the trade, you're going to be doing all the grunt labor work that the linemen, the journeymen don't want to do. So, hey, buck up. You got to be able to do the hard labor intensive work that the higher ups that put their time in don't want to do. So I would say also be able to show up on time. I was raised with a mentality from my dad of if you're not 15 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late. So show up to work like on time, and on time is 15 minutes early. Not 1 minute till or 7 o'clock on the dot. Show up, have a good attitude, be able to learn and adapt. If I need to tell you how to do something multiple times, it's really going to piss me off. I should really need to tell you one or two times, and then you need to take it upon yourself to learn those things, right? Whether that's electrical theory things when it comes to transformers, or if it's not tying, there's a lot of different perspectives, obviously variables inside the trade. As an apprentice or groundman, you got to take the upon yourself to actually go home after work and like want to learn about this type of stuff and like educate yourself. So be able to learn, have a positive attitude, show up to work on time, work hard. If at least you can have those 4 or 5 attributes, then I think you're really money ahead. Those 5 things are really the key factors for me. I mean, obviously now if you want to get into lineman trade, are you scared of heights? Like look up YouTube videos on lineman stuff. Are you scared of heights? High voltage, working long hours, working on the road, being away from family, being away from friends. Um, Like those type of things, do those scare you at all? If any one of those do, then the trade is not for you. I will tell you right off the bat. Also, if you don't have thick skin, trade is not for you. But if you love making a lot of money and you love traveling, you love heights, you love high voltage, you are an adrenaline junkie like I am, this trade's probably a good fit for you.
Cool, man. That's perfect. That's perfect information for everyone out there. What would, if someone out there was interested on getting the ball rolling, obviously you discovered a little bit of it in high school and then, stumbled your way through figuring it out. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so obviously Google has a whole bunch of stuff. It's Google, right? So you can Google all you want. One big thing that a lot of people in this generation don't really think about, but social media is a massive thing, right?
Right.
Use social media to your advantage. Use it as a tool. You can literally go on any social media page. That's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, any one of those pages, and you just find somebody that works in either the lineman trade or whatever trade you want to get into, and just DM them. Just ask them like, "Oh, hey, I got some questions. What steps? What would you recommend for me?" And I'm 99.9% certainty that that person is going to get back to you and be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, thanks for reaching out. This is how I got started. This is what I could recommend. Yeah, if you have any other questions, blah, 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 like reach out. Like I'll help you." Also, this also kind of brings to the point. Me and my brother started this company called Blueprint, which I don't know if you really want me, I can get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Blueprint is originally I started it. It was called Livewire Academy, which I want to just teach kids or people if they want to get into the lineman industry. I built a website and a company called Livewire Academy to teach the whole lineman trade. So I built a whole 5.5, 6 hour course of me going through the whole ins and outs of the lineman trade, how to get started, what tools do you need, knots, rigging, math, like kind of the whole A to Z, the whole bread and butter on what the lineman trade has to offer and how to get started and what can help you. But then I realized, like I saw with you guys and other people on social media, that there's a trade shortage and the lineman trade isn't the only trade out there that really needs help, or the lineman trade is really only probably for 1% of kids or people that want to get into a trade. So we started this company called Blueprint, Blue Collar Education, where now we're focused on teaching, exposing, and building courses on other trades. So lineman trade's not for you. That's great. We're building other courses on becoming an HVAC tech, getting into the plumbing industry, getting into the electrical industry. Maybe you want to be an iron worker. Maybe you want to get into the oil field. Maybe you want to get in the pipelines. There's so much trades out there. Like, which one do you want to get? Now with, like I've saw a lot of people, there's a lot of platforms and a lot of places you can go to learn about all these different opportunities. So that's what Blueprint is all about. We want to help specifically younger individuals, 18 to 25-year-olds, find a trade that they'll be interested in. And we want to teach them and help them expose them. How do I get started in that trade? And what does this trade have to offer for them? So if you were to go to our website at www.bluecollaredu.com, we have a whole bunch of information on there. You can go in the top right corner. We have a bunch of tabs. You can click on the career tab and you scroll down. We have a handful of careers on there. The only course we have right now is a lineman course because we're in the process of making courses for other trades. But we do have a lineman course. So if lineman is something that you want to get into, this is like you were saying, where can someone learn? Google. They can ask people on social media, DM them, come to my website, check out the lineman career. We got a bunch of great information on there. Reach out to me on any one of my platforms at Blue Collar EDU on basically all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I like to post a lot on YouTube because that's a good learning educational platform. And I put longer form content, educational videos on there for math, rigging, knots, just things that can help you in a trades. And then, just reach out to either me on one of those platforms. My email is austin@bluecollaredu.com. Email me. So if you have questions and I don't have an answer, I will find the answer and I'll get back to you. So I'm all here to help. Doesn't matter what trade you're interested in. Like I said, if you want to get into the welding industry or any industry and you don't know where to start, reach out to me. I'll reach out to somebody I know, or I'll find somebody and I'll get an answer for you.
Awesome, man. You guys are pretty much on the same page we are at this point, and just trying to fill that skilled labor gap. That's huge. And as you said, I mean, it's huge. HVAC, it's massive, and all most trades that I talk to, I mean, they're saying, yeah, we're having a hard time getting the word out to people. These are huge opportunities. There's a lot of money to be made. A lot of the education is paid for. You're not stranded in an office. You get to move around and all those positives. So it's awesome that you're out there doing that. We're happy to have you because, of course, we're on the same page with it. And in the long run, I think we're headed in the right direction. So we'll see it play out. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I basically just said it. Like I said, if alignment from, if you hear or watch this podcast and alignment trade is something that, oh, hey, that actually kind of sparks my interest. Like I said, go to our website. I don't know if you'll have it linked in descriptions or things like that, but at www.bluecollared.com, like I said, you can click on the career tabs and you can go to the lineman career and click on that. We have a bunch of information on there. Like I said, we have other careers on there as well. Like I said, reach out to me on any social media platform, my email, and yeah, if you're interested in a trade, let's figure out, our slogan at Blueprint is building your future starts here. So let's help you get started. And I look forward to helping as many individuals as I can find a successful career in the trades.
That's great, brother. Yeah, I found that with most people in the trades I talk to, which you're touching on, that most people are honestly, they see this labor gap that they need to be filled, and they're usually very supportive to, hey, if I can help in any way, I'm happy to help. So everyone, make sure you check out Blueprint, check out jointhetrades.com. Awesome. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you, crew. Really appreciate being on this podcast and building to share my story and just share what we're trying to do with Blueprint.
Awesome. We'll see you next time, folks.